I've always believed that the greatest revenge is simply rising above, choosing dignity over destruction. But sometimes, dignity demands that you stop smiling through the humiliation. Sometimes, truth needs to be laid bare before healing can begin. That's what I told myself as I stood on the rooftop of Shore Creative Agency, Denver's skyline glittering against the December night, snow falling softly around us like nature's own confetti. I was holding a half-empty champagne flute in one hand and a used notebook in the other, the kind with someone else's scribbles still on the first few pages. My gift from the company I'd poured my soul into for 6 years. To Ryan Thomas, the future of Shore Creative, you've earned this. Daniel Shore's voice boomed across the rooftop as he lifted his crystal glass. Our CEO was resplendent in his tailored suit, his silver hair catching the glow of the string lights that had been meticulously arranged for our annual holiday party. The 20 employees around me erupted in applause. Some whistled. I clapped too, tight smile, jaw locked. But inside, I was crumbling. I watched as Daniel draped his arm around Ryan's shoulders. Ryan, who I'd trained when he joined the agency 2 years ago. Ryan, who had just been gifted company stock, not just shares, but 20,000 shares, valued in the millions. Speech! Speech! Someone called out, and Ryan stepped forward, his boyish face flushed with excitement. I'm just overwhelmed, he said, running a hand through his perfectly styled dark hair. When I joined Shore Creative, I never imagined I'd be standing here today. I have to thank Daniel for seeing something in me. My fingers tightened around the notebook. Its cover was bent at the corner, and when I'd opened it earlier, I'd found meeting notes dating back to March scrawled on the first 3 pages. Someone had obviously cleaned out their desk and tossed it in the gift pile. And of course, I want to thank Kendra, Ryan continued, his eyes finding mine in the crowd, for showing me the ropes when I first started. The acknowledgement felt worse than being ignored, a patronizing pat on the head while he stood there wearing the crown. Kendra Fields, everyone, Daniel chimed in, raising his glass in my direction. The backbone of our creative team, always reliable. The crowd turned to look at me. I saw sympathy in some eyes, indifference in others. Rachel from HR gave me a meaningful look. She knew. She'd seen the spreadsheets, the profit margins, the campaigns I'd salvaged. I smiled and nodded, lifting my glass in return. Congratulations, Ryan. The party resumed its rhythm. People clustered in small groups, laughing, gossiping, networking. I made my way to the bar and ordered another drink, stronger this time. That was quite a moment, said a voice beside me. Henry Blake, our project director, leaned against the bar. His eyes, behind rimless glasses, were kind but penetrating. Which part? I asked, accepting my whiskey neat from the bartender. The part where Daniel practically coronated Ryan while giving you what appears to be trash from someone's desk drawer. Henry never minced. Words. It was why we got along. I took a sip, welcoming the burn. I taught Ryan everything he knows. We all know that. Even Ryan knows that. I looked across the rooftop at Ryan, now surrounded by junior staffers, all eager to bask in his glow. Daniel was nearby, proudly watching his protege like a father. You know what the worst part is? I said quietly. I'm not even surprised. Henry studied me for a moment. What are you going to do? The question hung between us. What could I do? Quit in a blaze of glory? Write a scathing email to the entire staff? None of that was me. My father, a Vietnam veteran who raised me alone after my mother left, had always taught me, don't shout your worth, prove it. But hadn't I been proving it? For 6 years? I'm going to finish my drink, I said finally, and then I'm going home. Later, as I walked through the quiet, snow-covered streets of Denver, the weight of the evening settled over me like the gathering snow on my shoulders. The used notebook was stuffed in my purse. I couldn't bear to leave it behind as evidence of my public diminishment. My apartment was dark when I entered, just like I'd left it. No one waiting, no one to tell about my humiliation. At 42, I'd prioritized my career over relationships, believing that excellence would eventually be recognized. That merit mattered more than politics. I kicked off my heels and poured another drink, then sat at my small dining table and pulled out the notebook. Flipping past the used pages, I found blank ones waiting. I began to write. Not angry words, not a resignation letter. Something else entirely. By the time dawn broke over the city, painting the snow-covered buildings in shades of pink and gold, I had made my decision. I showered, dressed in my most professional outfit, a charcoal pantsuit with a cream silk blouse, and headed back to Shore Creative, arriving before anyone else. Daniel's office door was unlocked. It always was. He prided himself on his open door policy, though few dared to use it. I placed a sealed envelope on his desk, directly in the center where he couldn't miss it. Then I went to my cubicle and began my day as if nothing had changed. But everything had. By 9:30, the office was buzzing with post-party chatter. I heard snippets about Ryan's windfall, about the food, about who drank too much. No one mentioned the notebook. Why would they? It was forgettable, just like I had apparently become. At 10:15, Daniel strode in, coffee in hand, greeting people with his trademark charm. He didn't look my way. He never did anymore. At 10:22, he entered his office. At 10:24, the entire floor fell silent, and I smiled for the first time since the party, a real smile this time, because I knew what Daniel was reading, and I knew that nothing at Shore Creative would ever be the same again. I remember the day I first walked into Shore Creative Agency. It wasn't even called that then, just Shore Design, operating out of a cramped co-working space in Lodo with mismatched furniture and questionable plumbing. Daniel had hired me after seeing my portfolio, impressed by campaigns I'd created for a smaller firm in Chicago. "I need someone who can think big but execute with precision," he'd said during my interview. "Someone who doesn't need hand-holding, someone who can help build something meaningful." I believed him. More importantly, I believed in what we could create together. For the first 3 years, we did exactly that. I worked impossible hours, pouring creativity and strategy into every project. When clients balked at Daniel's sometimes abrasive approach, I smoothed things over. When deadlines seemed impossible, I made them possible. When the pandemic hit and we nearly lost everything, I was the one who pivoted our entire business model to focus on digital experiences, saving not just my job, but everyone's. Daniel recognized my value then. He called me his secret weapon. We were a team. Until we weren't. The shift was subtle at first. Daniel hired more people as we grew. Talented people, ambitious people. I welcomed them, mentored them, helped them succeed. Then came the leadership meetings I wasn't invited to, the client dinners I learned about after the fact, the gradual erosion of my place at the table I had helped build. "It's not personal," Rachel from HR had told me once, after I'd been passed over for creative director in favor of someone Daniel had poached from a competitor. "It's just business strategy." But it felt personal when I trained Ryan Thomas, fresh out of grad school with more charm than experience. It felt personal when Daniel started taking him to meetings I would normally attend. It felt personal when my ideas were dismissed in meetings, only to be celebrated when Ryan rephrased them minutes later. And it felt devastatingly personal last night, when Daniel's business strategy translated to stocks for Ryan and trash for me. These thoughts swirled through my mind as I sat at my desk, waiting. The silence following Daniel's entrance to his office had given way to hushed whispers. People were stealing glances at me, at his closed door, then back at me. My phone buzzed with a text from Henry. "What did you do?" I didn't respond. He'd find out soon enough. Rachel emerged from her office, walking briskly toward Daniel's door. Her normally composed face looked tense. She knocked once and entered without waiting for a response. 10 minutes passed, 15, 20. Then Daniel's door opened. Rachel exited first, her expression unreadable. Daniel followed, his face flushed beneath his tan. "Conference room," he barked. "Everyone, now." People exchanged confused glances as they stood, gathering notebooks, real ones, not cast-offs, and devices. Ryan emerged from his office. He'd been given an actual office while I still worked from a cubicle, looking puzzled. "What's going on?" he asked, no one in particular. No one answered. They didn't. No. But I did. In the conference room, Daniel stood at the head of the table, hands gripping the back of his chair so tightly his knuckles were white. Rachel stood to his right, arms crossed. The rest of us filled in around the large table, with Ryan taking a seat near Daniel. I chose a spot near the door. "There's been a situation brought to my attention," Daniel began, his voice strained. "Allegations about favoritism and improper recognition within the company." Eyes darted around the room. Some settled on me. I kept my gaze steady, focused on Daniel. "I want to make it clear that Shore Creative values all its employees. All contributions are recognized and rewarded appropriately based on what exactly?" Henry interrupted, something he'd never done before. "Because I've reviewed the contents of Kendra's envelope and I have questions. The room froze. Daniel's face darkened. You weren't meant to see that, Henry. But I did, Henry replied calmly. Rachel shared it with me as head of project management. And frankly, I'm disturbed by what I saw. Daniel's eyes flashed to Rachel, who met his gaze unflinchingly. As HR director, she said evenly, it's my responsibility to address potential discrimination and equity issues. The data Kendra compiled meets that threshold. What data? Ryan asked, looking between Daniel and Rachel. What's happening? Rachel placed a folder on the table and opened it. Kendra provided a detailed analysis of contribution versus recognition at Shore Creative over the past 5 years. The numbers show a clear pattern. She began passing out printed sheets. I recognized them. The same charts and graphs I'd stayed up all night creating. According to our financial records, Rachel continued, campaigns led by Kendra Fields have generated 62% of our revenue. She has personally saved 3 major accounts from leaving. She trained 5 of our current team members, including Ryan, yet her compensation has increased by only 8% in 6 years. She's been passed over for promotion twice, and last night she received a used notebook as a holiday gift, while others received significantly more. The room was utterly silent now. Ryan was staring at the paper in front of him, his face pale. Several junior staffers looked shocked. Ella, a talented copywriter I'd mentored, had tears in her eyes. This isn't appropriate. For a group discussion, Daniel said sharply. This is a matter for leadership to... That's the problem, I said, speaking for the first time. My voice was steady, surprising even me. When it comes to leadership, I'm conveniently excluded. But when it comes to results, to actual work, to client satisfaction, suddenly I'm essential. All eyes turned to me. I didn't compile this data to embarrass anyone, I continued. I did it because last night made one thing painfully clear. My contributions to this company have become invisible, and I needed to understand if that was accidental or intentional. I looked directly at Daniel. The data suggests it's intentional. Daniel's face flushed deeper. Kendra, you're a valued member of... Don't. I cut him off, rising from my chair. Don't tell me. I'm valued while your actions say otherwise. A used notebook, Daniel, with someone else's notes still in it. That's what 6 years of loyalty and excellence earned me. The room collectively winced. Someone gasped softly. If anyone would like to see the complete analysis, I said, addressing the room, including client testimonials specifically mentioning my work that was later credited to others, it's all in the envelope I left. I've also forwarded it to everyone's email, in case it mysteriously disappears. I gathered my things and walked to the door, then paused and turned back. Oh, and I left something else on your desk, Daniel. My resignation letter. 2 weeks' notice, as is professional, though I suspect you might prefer I leave sooner. With that, I walked out, head high, back straight. The conference room erupted in voices behind me, but I didn't look back. As I passed my desk to gather my personal items, my phone buzzed again. A text from Henry. That was the most dignified burning of a bridge I've ever witnessed. Drinks later? I smiled as I typed my response. Absolutely. But it's not a bridge I'm burning. It's a path I'm clearing. The afternoon air was crisp as I stepped out of Shore Creative's glass-fronted building. Denver's downtown hummed with pre-holiday energy, shoppers bustling between stores, street vendors selling roasted chestnuts, light posts wrapped in garlands. It all seemed strangely disconnected from the emotional earthquake I'd just triggered. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I left. Texts from co-workers ranging from supportive, "You're my hero," to concerned, "Are you okay?" to opportunistic, "Can I take you to coffee? I'd love your advice." I silenced it and slipped it into my pocket. Right now, I needed space to breathe. I found myself walking toward Civic Center Park, where the holiday market was in full swing. Wooden stalls selling artisan goods lined the pathways, and the scent of mulled wine and cinnamon filled the air. I bought a cup of hot cider and found an empty bench facing the Capitol building, its gold dome gleaming in the winter sunlight. Is this seat taken? I looked up to see Rachel, her cheeks flushed from the cold, or perhaps from the confrontation back at the office. Maybe both. Be my guest, I said, sliding over. She sat, adjusting her burgundy scarf. For a moment, we both stared ahead at the holiday scene before us, saying nothing. That was quite an exit, she finally said. How bad is it back there? Rachel sighed. Chaos. After you left, Ella stood up and said she couldn't work for a company that treated its best people like garbage. Then Marcos from the design team started listing all the times you'd saved his projects. Then Henry pulled up the company financials on the projection screen and started highlighting the accounts you'd brought in. I winced. That wasn't my intention. Wasn't it? Rachel gave me a sideways look. The timing of your envelope, the company-wide email. I didn't want revenge, I said firmly. I wanted recognition. There's a difference. Rachel nodded slowly. Fair enough. She pulled out her phone, which was also buzzing incessantly. Daniel's called an emergency leadership meeting. He wants me back there in 20 minutes. What will happen? Damage control, she said simply. Ryan's devastated, by the way. Says he had no idea about the disparities. I took a sip of my cider, letting the warmth spread through me. I believe him. This isn't about Ryan. He's just a symptom of a bigger problem. The problem being Daniel. The problem being a culture that values charisma over competence. Style over substance. I turned to face her. You've seen it too, Rachel. Don't tell me you haven't. She didn't deny it. Instead, she asked, what will you do now? It was the same question Henry had asked at the party. This time, I had an answer. I'm going to start my own agency. Smaller, focused on campaigns with substance. No politics, no favoritism, just good work and proper recognition. Rachel's eyebrows rose. Just like that? I've been saving for years, and I know this business inside and out. I smiled slightly. Plus, I suspect I might have a few clients willing to follow me. And staff? Rachel asked, her eyes calculating. I shrugged. One step at a time. First, I need to serve out my notice period. Rachel laughed. A short, sharp sound. I wouldn't count on that. Daniel will likely ask you to leave today. With pay, of course. He's not stupid enough to invite a wrongful termination suit on top of everything else. My heart sank a little. Despite everything, the thought of being escorted out like a criminal stung. Shore Creative had been my professional home for 6 years. I'd poured myself into that place. As if reading my thoughts, Rachel added softly, it's not about punishing you. It's about containing the situation. Your presence would be disruptive, because people might realize they deserve better? Exactly. My phone buzzed again. I pulled it out this time. It was Henry. Daniel's looking for you. Wants you back ASAP. I showed Rachel the message. She stood brushing invisible, lint from her immaculate pantsuit. We should head back, together. The walk back to the office was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts. When we reached the building, Rachel paused. Whatever happens in there, Kendra, know that you did the right thing. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who's ever been overlooked or undervalued. I nodded, touched by her words. Thank you, Rachel. When we stepped off the elevator onto our floor, the atmosphere was palpably tense. Conversations hushed as I passed. Some people avoided eye contact. Others gave me small nods of respect. Daniel was waiting in the conference room with Ryan and 2 people I recognized as members of the company's legal team. My stomach tightened. Kendra, Daniel said, his voice carefully controlled. Thank you for coming back. Please sit down. I took a seat across from him, Rachel settling beside me. The lawyers exchanged glances. I've had a chance to review the materials you provided, Daniel began, and after consulting with legal and HR, we agree that there have been oversights in how your contributions have been recognized. It was the closest thing to an admission I was likely to get. To address this immediately, we'd like to offer you a promotion to Executive Creative Director with a substantial compensation adjustment. He slid a paper across the table. The number made my eyebrows rise. Additionally, we're prepared to grant you stock options comparable to what Ryan received. I glanced at Ryan, who was staring at his hands, his expression miserable. And the used notebook? I couldn't help asking. Daniel had the grace to look embarrassed. An inexcusable error. Someone grabbed it from the supply closet without checking it. I take full responsibility. I looked at the offer, then at Rachel, whose face remained carefully neutral. The money was impressive. The title was what I'd deserved years ago. It would be so easy to accept, to let the wound be bandaged with cash and prestige. But something felt wrong. This wasn't recognition. It was damage control. And it had taken the threat of public humiliation to prompt it. I appreciate the offer, I said carefully. But I think we both know this isn't about money or titles. It's about respect. And respect that has to be demanded isn't respect at all. Daniel's jaw tightened. Kendra, be reasonable. We're trying to make this right. No, I corrected him. You're trying to make it go away. There's a difference. I pushed the paper back across the table. I'll be maintaining my resignation. The lawyers exchanged another look. One of them whispered something to Daniel, who nodded. In that case, he said, his voice hardening, we accept your resignation, effective immediately. You'll be paid through your notice. Period, of course, and we'll need you to sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding company operations and clients. And there it was, exactly as Rachel had predicted. I was being ushered out. I have no intention of disparaging Shore Creative or violating confidentiality, I said, but I won't sign anything today. I'll have my lawyer review any documents you want me to sign. More whispers between Daniel and the legal team. Fine, he conceded. HR will contact you. You can clean out your desk now. Rachel will escort you. As we stood to leave, Ryan finally looked up. Kendra, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I cut him off with a small shake of my head. It's not your fault, Ryan. Make the most of your opportunity. As Rachel and I left the conference room, I felt strangely light. 6 years of my professional life were ending, yet instead of fear, I felt possibility unfurling before me. You could have taken the money, Rachel murmured as we walked to my desk. It wouldn't have changed anything, I replied. The culture would remain the same. Next year there would be another used notebook for someone else. She nodded, understanding. What's next for you? I smiled. A real one this time. I think it's time I built something of my own. The first week after leaving Shore Creative passed in a blur. I hired a lawyer to review the separation documents. I set up meetings with a commercial real estate agent to look at small office spaces. I registered a business name, ClearPoint Collective, and started building a website. I didn't reach out to clients. I didn't have to. They called me. I heard what happened, said Veronica Sandoval, CEO of Altura Mountain Resorts, a major account I'd managed for years. Daniel tried to convince me it was an amicable separation, but the industry talks, Kendra. We were sitting in her corner office with views of the mountains, drinking espresso from delicate porcelain cups. Veronica had always appreciated directness. It wasn't hostile. I said carefully, just necessary. She smiled, a sharp expression that matched her sleek silver bob and impeccable suit. Well, necessary or not, it's left me with a decision to make. Our contract with Shore is up for renewal next month, and frankly, I'm not impressed with how they've handled this transition. My heart beat faster, but I kept my expression neutral. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't. Be coy, she said, setting down her cup with a decisive click. You were the only reason we stayed with Shore. Your strategies doubled our winter bookings last year. So here's my question. Are you taking clients yet? I hesitated. I'm still bound by certain restrictions in my separation agreement. Non-compete? No, surprisingly. Just non-solicitation. I can't approach Shore's clients. Directly. Veronica laughed. But they can approach you. Convenient. She leaned forward. Consider this an approach, then. I want ClearPoint Collective. Yes, I looked you up. To handle our marketing going forward. Full budget transfer from Shore. Can you start next month? It was happening faster than I'd anticipated, but I was ready. Yes, I said simply. I'd be honored. By the end of the second week, I had secured 3 clients, all former Shore accounts who had reached out to me. I'd found a small but stylish office space in Reno, Denver's arts district, with exposed brick walls and large windows. I'd even hired an assistant, a recent marketing graduate named Zoe, who'd impressed me with her initiative. But the biggest surprise came on a Friday afternoon as I was arranging furniture in my new space. Need help with that desk? I turned to find Ella standing in the doorway, a hesitant smile on her face. Ella? What are you doing here? She stepped inside, looking around appreciatively at the space. I quit Shore yesterday. So did Marcos, and Wei from Digital. I stared at her, stunned. Why? After you left, things changed. Daniel became obsessed with preventing any more departures, micromanaging everything, questioning our loyalty. It was suffocating. She took a deep breath. Plus, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said, about valuing competence over charisma. I want to work somewhere that does that. I sank into my newly positioned desk chair. I never meant to trigger an exodus. You didn't. Daniel did, by showing us all exactly what he values. She stepped closer, determination in her eyes. I want to work for you, Kendra. I'm good at what I do, and I want to get better, under someone who sees that. Before I could respond, there was another knock at the open door. This time it was Marcos, his portfolio tucked under his arm, and way behind him, smiling nervously. "We had the same idea," Marcos said, grinning. "Great minds and all that." I looked at the three of them, talented, passionate, and brave enough to leap into uncertainty, and felt a surge of responsibility mixed with excitement. "I can't pay sure salaries yet," I warned them. "This is a startup with all the risks that entails." "We know," Wei said quietly. "We did the math. With the clients you've already secured, you can afford modest salaries with growth potential. And we'd rather earn less working for someone who values us than more working for someone who doesn't." I was touched by their faith in me, and a little terrified by it too. These were young professionals putting their careers in my hands. "Okay," I said finally. "Let's talk specifics. I need a creative team that can deliver excellence without the bloat and politics of a large agency. If that's what you're offering, I'm listening." By the end of the day, I had a team. By the end of the month, I had an agency. The hardest call came from Ryan, 3 weeks after I'd left shore. "Can we meet?" he asked, his voice tense over the phone. "There are things I need to say, in person." We arranged to meet at a small coffee shop halfway between Shore's offices and my new space. When I arrived, Ryan was, already there, fidgeting with a napkin, his normally perfect hair slightly disheveled. "Thank you for coming," he said as I sat down across from him. "I wasn't sure you would." "Why wouldn't I?" I asked, genuinely curious. He looked down at his hands. "Because I benefited from your mistreatment. Because I was given recognition and rewards that should have been shared with you. Because I didn't speak up when I should have." I studied him for a moment. Ryan had always been likable, eager, charming, quick to learn. I'd enjoyed mentoring him, watching him grow. It wasn't his fault that Daniel had used him as a weapon in his campaign to diminish me. "You didn't know," I said finally. "You can't be blamed for accepting opportunities that were offered to you." "But I should have questioned why." "They were offered to me and not to you," he insisted. "Especially after seeing the data. The disparities were stark." I nodded, waiting for him to continue. There was clearly more he needed to say. "I resigned yesterday," he said quietly. I couldn't hide my surprise. "You what?" "Ryan, you had stock, a future there. Built on someone else's work." He met my eyes directly. "I couldn't stay. Knowing what I know now, it felt tainted." "What will you do?" He shrugged. "Not sure yet. Maybe freelance for a while. Maybe leave Denver altogether." He hesitated. "Unless—" I knew where this was going. "Ryan, I can't hire you." "Why not? I'm good at what I do. You taught me yourself." "Because it would send the wrong message to my team. And because you need to build something of your own, not ride on my coattails in the opposite direction." He looked disappointed, but nodded. "I understand." As we finished our coffee, he asked me about ClearPoint, and I shared our early successes. In turn, he told me about the chaos at Shore, how clients were leaving, how morale had plummeted, how Daniel was facing pressure from the board. "He still doesn't get it," Ryan said, shaking his head. "He thinks it's about money and titles. He doesn't understand it's about dignity." As we parted ways outside the coffee shop, Ryan hesitated, then said, "I meant what I said at the holiday party, about thanking you for showing me the ropes. You were the best mentor I could have asked for." I smiled. "Then honor that by being better than what you've seen. Build something meaningful. Create a workplace where people like me, and like you, can thrive based on merit, not politics." "I will," he promised. And looking at the determination in his eyes, I believed him. 1 month after my departure from Shore Creative, I sat in my new office at ClearPoint Collective, reviewing our first campaign proposals. The exposed brick walls were now adorned with framed prints, inspirational quotes mixed, with bold graphic designs created by Marcos. My desk faced the large windows overlooking the street, allowing natural light to flood the space throughout the day. It felt right. It felt mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Coffee today? I have news." We'd stayed in touch since my departure, meeting occasionally for coffee or lunch. Each time, she'd update me on the aftermath at, Shore. The scrambling to replace departing talent, the declining morale, the board's growing concern. I was curious what news she had today. We met at our usual spot, a small cafe halfway between our offices. Rachel was already there when I arrived, her normally perfect appearance slightly disheveled. There was something different about her energy, a tension in her shoulders, but a brightness in her. Eyes. You look interesting, I said as I slid into the seat across from her. Good interesting or bad interesting? Both, she replied, pushing a cup toward me. She'd already ordered my usual. I resigned from Shore this morning. I nearly choked on my first sip. You what? Rachel had been with Shore Creative for 8 years, longer than me. As HR director, she knew everyone's secrets, managed every crisis, kept the entire operation running smoothly behind the scenes. She was as much a fixture there as Daniel himself. The board called an emergency meeting yesterday, she explained, her voice low despite the cafe's ambient noise. They're concerned about the client exodus. 4 major accounts have left in the past month. Revenues are down almost 30%. And they blame me, I guessed. Actually, no, they blame Daniel. Her eyes met mine, sharp and clear. Your data analysis opened some eyes. They started looking more closely at the patterns, not just in how employees were treated, but in client relationships too. Turns out Daniel has been playing favorites there as well, neglecting established accounts in favor of flashier new ones. I nodded, unsurprised. So, why did you resign? Sounds like things might actually improve. Rachel twisted her coffee cup in her hands. Because I enabled it. For years I justified the inequities, the favoritism. I told myself I was just doing my job, following orders. But after watching you walk away from everything you'd built rather than compromise your integrity, I couldn't keep doing it. Her words hung between us. I hadn't expected this, hadn't considered that my actions might ripple outward, affecting others in ways I couldn't anticipate. What will you do now? I asked. She looked up, a small smile playing at her lips. That's actually the second part of my news. I've been approached by Veronica Sandoval. Altura Mountain Resorts? My client? Former Shore client, current ClearPoint client. She corrected. Veronica was impressed by how I handled your departure. She's expanding her executive team and wants me to join as Chief People Officer. Rachel, that's amazing! I reached across the table to squeeze her hand. Veronica is brilliant, and Altura is doing incredible things in sustainable tourism. It's perfect for you. It is, she agreed. But there's a third piece of news. I sat back, raising an eyebrow. You're full of surprises today. The board has asked Daniel to step down as CEO of Shore Creative. The cafe seemed to still around us. This was bigger than I'd imagined. Daniel Shore was Shore Creative, his name on the building, his vision that had built it from nothing. When? I managed. Effective immediately. They're bringing in someone from outside to realign the company, culture, and restore client confidence. She made air quotes with her fingers. Corporate speak for fix the mess Daniel made. I sat in silence, processing this information. I'd never wanted Daniel's destruction, only my own recognition. But actions have consequences, sometimes far beyond what we anticipate. There's more, Rachel said, leaning forward. Ryan's been offered the creative director position. Really? This genuinely surprised me. After he resigned, they convinced him to stay, promised him autonomy to rebuild the creative team. He asked me to tell you he's implementing a lot of the changes you wanted. Transparent project attribution, credit for campaign leads, equitable bonus structures. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Pride in Ryan for taking a stand, satisfaction that the changes I'd fought for were finally happening, and a touch of wistfulness that I wouldn't be there to see it. Good for him, I said sincerely. He'll do well. Rachel studied me. You don't regret leaving? I looked around the cafe, thinking of my new office a few blocks away, of the team that had chosen to follow me, of the clients who had sought me out. Not for a second. What happened at Shore was necessary. For me, and it seems for them too. But ClearPoint is where I belong now. Speaking of ClearPoint, Rachel said, her tone shifting to something more hesitant. I have a fourth piece of news, or rather, a question. I waited, curious. You need an HR director, she said simply. Someone who understands how to build an ethical company culture from the ground up. Someone who's learned from past mistakes. I stared at her, stunned for the second time in our conversation. You want to work for me? Rachel, you just got offered a C-suite position at Altura. I haven't accepted yet, she replied. And yes, it's a fantastic opportunity. But what you're building at ClearPoint, a company founded on integrity and recognition, that's the kind of place I want to help. Create. I considered her offer. Rachel was overqualified for what I could afford to pay her, but her experience would be invaluable as we grew, and I trusted her, despite her role in Shore's toxic culture, she had ultimately chosen to stand up for what was right. I can't match Altura's salary, I warned. I know, but you can offer me equity. Her eyes were steady. I believe in what you're building, Kendra. I want to be part of it. It was a pivotal moment, the kind that shapes a company's future. I thought of how Shore Creative had started with Daniel's vision, but had been twisted by his ego. I had the chance to build something different, something better. Let's discuss terms, I said finally. But first, I need to be clear about something. Clearpoint isn't about getting revenge on Shore or proving Daniel wrong. It's about creating the kind of agency I always wanted to work for, one where excellence is recognized, where integrity matters more than politics. Rachel nodded. That's exactly why I want to join you. As we left the cafe, walking side by side through the crisp Denver air, I felt a sense of possibility that had been missing from my professional life for years. Not just the excitement of a new venture, but the profound satisfaction of building something aligned with my values. You know, Rachel said as we paused at a crosswalk, I never asked you what was in that notebook, the used one Daniel gave you. I smiled. Nothing important, just some meeting notes from March, a shopping list, a few doodles. Yet it changed everything. No, I corrected her. It just revealed what was already there. Sometimes it takes a small indignity to illuminate a larger injustice. The light changed, and we stepped forward together into whatever came next. 6 months passed in a blur of client meetings, campaign launches, and growing pains. Clearpoint Collective expanded from our original team of 5 to 12, outgrowing our charming Rhino office and moving to a larger space in Lodo. Rachel proved invaluable, establishing protocols and policies that ensured our growth wouldn't compromise our values. It wasn't all smooth sailing. We lost a pitch to a larger agency. A promising hire didn't work out. One week, I wasn't sure if we could make payroll. Then a new client signed at the 11th hour, saving us. The roller coaster of entrepreneurship was thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Through it all, I kept a small reminder on my desk, the used notebook from Shore Creative, not as a token of bitterness, but as a reminder of where I'd come from and why I'd started this journey. On a snowy Tuesday in June, Colorado weather being what it is, I was reviewing our quarterly financials when my assistant Zoe buzzed me. There's a Daniel Shore here to see. You, she said, her voice carefully neutral. No appointment. My heart skipped. I hadn't seen or spoken to Daniel since that final day at Shore Creative. Through Rachel and industry gossip, I knew he'd been pushed into a chairman emeritus role, essentially a fancy title with no real power. The new CEO, a woman named Lydia Chen, who'd come from a major New York agency, was reportedly dismantling his legacy piece by piece. Send him in, I said after a moment's hesitation. Daniel entered my office, stamping snow from his shoes. He looked older somehow, though it had only been 6 months. His silver hair was less precisely styled, his posture less commanding, but his eyes were the same, calculating, assessing everything. Nice space, he said, glancing around. Bigger than I expected. We're growing, I replied, remaining seated behind my desk. What can I do for you, Daniel? He sank into one of the chairs opposite me, unbuttoning his coat. Can an old boss stop by to see how his protege is doing? I was never your protege, I said evenly. And you never stopped by my cubicle in 6 years at Shore. So again, what can I do for you? He sighed, the facade dropping. I've been consulting since the change at Shore. Small projects mostly. Keeping busy. I nodded, waiting. I've been following your success, he continued. 4 new major clients in 6 months. That campaign for Denver Health that won a Clio. You're making waves, Kendra. Thank you, I said, genuine despite my wariness. We have a good team. That's actually why I'm here. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. I've been working on a new venture, a boutique consultancy focused on healthcare marketing. I need a partner with fresh creative vision, someone who understands the landscape. I stared at him, hardly believing what I was hearing. You want to partner with me? After everything that happened? Business is business, he said with a shrug. We had our differences, but we always made magic together creatively. Remember the Altura campaign? The Denver Zoo rebrand? We were unstoppable. I remember doing the work while you took the credit, I replied, keeping my voice level. I remember being passed over for promotions while you elevated less qualified people. I remember a used notebook, Daniel. He had the grace to look embarrassed. I've had time to reflect on my leadership style. I made mistakes. The notebook thing. That was inexcusable. I should have valued you more. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old desire for his approval, the need to be seen by someone who had shaped so much of my professional identity. It would be so easy to accept this olive branch, to believe he'd changed. But then I looked past him, through my office door to the open workspace beyond. Ella was coaching a new junior copywriter, her hands animated as she explained a concept. Marcos and Wei were collaborating at the design table, surrounded by sketches. Rachel was leading a team meeting in the glass-walled conference room, everyone engaged and contributing. This was what I had built. Not just an agency, but a community where everyone's contributions were valued, where credit was given where due, where excellence was nurtured rather than exploited. I'm not interested in a partnership, I said finally. ClearPoint is doing well on its own. Daniel's expression hardened slightly. Don't let pride cloud your judgment, Kendra. I still have connections, influence. We could be a powerhouse together. My judgment isn't clouded by pride, I corrected him. It's clarified by experience. Our approaches to business are fundamentally incompatible. Meaning? Meaning I believe recognition should be shared, not hoarded. That merit matters more than charm. That true leadership lifts others rather than using them as stepping stones. I gestured to the office beyond. Everyone here knows their value is recognized. Can you say the same about Shore under your leadership? He fell silent, studying me with new eyes. Finally, he said, You've changed. No, I replied. I've simply stopped apologizing for who I've always been. Daniel nodded slowly, then rose from his chair. The offer stands if you change your mind. Here's my card. He placed it on my desk, but I didn't reach for it. I won't change my mind. Fair enough. He buttoned his coat, preparing to leave. Then he paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry about the notebook. And other things. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of all he'd done, but it was something. More than I'd expected. Thank you for saying that, I said simply. After he left, Rachel appeared in my doorway. Was that who I think it was? I nodded. Daniel wanted to propose a partnership. Her eyebrows shot up. Seriously? What did you say? I declined. I smiled, politely but firmly. Rachel came in and closed the door behind her. How did it feel? Seeing him again? I considered the question. Less dramatic than I expected. He's just a man who made poor choices. Not a villain, just flawed. Like all of us, Rachel said softly. Exactly. But that doesn't mean I need to invite those flaws back into my life. I picked up Daniel's card and dropped it into my desk drawer. Some chapters need to stay closed. Rachel nodded, then changed the subject to our upcoming client presentation. As she talked, I glanced at the used notebook sitting at the corner of my desk. 6 months ago, it had represented everything wrong with my professional life, the disrespect, the erasure, the quiet indignities. Now it represented something else entirely, the catalyst that had pushed me to create something better. Not just for myself, but for everyone who had joined me on this journey. Sometimes the smallest slight can lead to the greatest growth. Sometimes a used notebook can change everything. 1 year after leaving Shore Creative, I stood on the rooftop of ClearPoint Collective's new headquarters, champagne flute in hand. The setting was eerily familiar. String lights, Denver skyline, snow gently falling, but everything else had changed. To 1 year of integrity, excellence, and growth, I said, raising my glass to the 28 employees gathered around me. And to all of you who made it possible. Cheers erupted. Faces glowed with pride and celebration. We'd grown beyond my wildest expectations, from a scrappy startup to a respected boutique agency, with a reputation for both creative excellence and ethical business practices. Rachel appeared at my side, elegant in a deep blue dress. Nice speech, short and sweet. Unlike the one I've been preparing for later, I admitted. We'd planned a more formal ceremony downstairs, where I would present the first annual ClearPoint recognition awards, complete with meaningful bonuses. Nervous? She asked. A little, I confessed. It's different being on this side of things. The side that gives rather than receives. Her eyes were knowing. The side with responsibility for everyone's livelihood, I corrected her. When I left Shore, I was only risking my own future. Now I have 28 people counting on me to make the right decisions. Rachel nodded, understanding. That's why they follow you. Because you think that way. The party continued around us, groups forming and reforming in the natural flow of celebration. I spotted Ella showing photos on her phone to a cluster of colleagues, probably pictures of her new puppy, which had become the unofficial office mascot. Marcos was deep in conversation with our newest client, a sustainable fashion brand that had sought us out specifically for our values-aligned approach. My phone buzzed in my clutch, a text from Henry Blake, who had finally joined ClearPoint 3 months ago after Shore's continued decline. Package for you at the bar. Don't shoot the messenger. Curious, I scanned the rooftop until I spotted Henry by the bar, giving me a meaningful, look. I excused myself from Rachel and made my way over. What's this about a package? I asked. Henry nodded toward a small gift bag on the bar. Delivered to reception an hour ago, for you specifically. I picked it up cautiously. It was lightweight, with no card attached. Any idea who it's from? I have suspicions, Henry said cryptically. Open it. Inside the bag was a small box, and inside the box was a notebook, brand new, leather-bound, with my initials embossed in gold on the cover. Simple, but elegant. Clearly expensive. Turn to the first page, Henry suggested. I did. There, in familiar handwriting, was a brief note. Some gifts can never make up for past mistakes, but they can acknowledge them. Congratulations on your first year. The industry is better with your voice in. Stature NTS. Daniel Shore. I stared at the note, emotions swirling. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was an acknowledgement. And from Daniel, that was significant. He asked me to make sure you got it, Henry explained. We still get coffee occasionally. He's changed, Kendra. The fall from grace humbled him. I ran my fingers over the embossed initials. This doesn't change anything. It's not meant to, Henry said gently. It's just a gesture. You can take it as such or not. I placed the notebook back in its box. Thank you for delivering it. And tell him thank you, next time you see him. Henry looked surprised. Really? Really, I confirmed. Holding grudges takes energy I'd rather put elsewhere. Besides, in a strange way, I owe him. Without that used notebook, ClearPoint might never have existed. The conversation was interrupted by Zoe, my assistant, now promoted to account coordinator. Kendra, it's time for the award ceremony. Everyone's heading downstairs. I took a deep breath, tucking the new notebook into my clutch. Let's do this. The main floor of our office had been transformed for the occasion. Chairs were arranged in rows facing a small stage we'd constructed for the event. A projection screen displayed our company logo, a clear, sharp arrow pointing upward, symbolic of our name and mission. As our team settled in, I took the stage, a new kind of nervousness fluttering in my stomach. This wasn't the anxiety of being overlooked or undervalued. This was the responsibility of recognition, of ensuring that every person in that room knew exactly how much they mattered. 1 year ago, I began, ClearPoint Collective was just an idea, a response to a culture that valued the wrong things. We started with a simple premise, that excellence should be recognized, that integrity should matter more than politics, and that the best work happens when people feel truly valued. Faces looked back at me, some who had been with me from the beginning, others who had joined along the way, all part of what we were building. Tonight, we're not just celebrating our success as a company, we're celebrating each individual contribution that made that success possible. I gestured to a table covered with elegant black boxes. These awards represent not just achievement, but the values that define us. One by one, I called people forward. There was the Innovation Award for Way, who had developed a new approach to digital campaigns that had become our signature. The Bridge Builder Award for Marcos, whose collaborative spirit had transformed our creative process. The Rising Star Award for Zoe, who had grown from assistant to essential team member in record time. With each award came a bonus, substantial, transparent, and based on clear criteria that everyone understood. No politics, no favorites, just recognition where it was due. When I called Ella's name for the Impact Award, recognizing her campaign that had helped a local nonprofit double their donations, she hugged me fiercely before taking her award. You showed me what leadership should look like, she whispered. Thank you for that gift. Her words struck me deeply. In creating ClearPoint, I had sought to build the kind of agency I had always wanted to work for. But somewhere along the way, it had become more, a model for what business could be, a template for others to follow. The final award of the night was one I had kept secret, even from Rachel. As the ceremony neared its end, I asked for everyone's attention once more. There's one more recognition tonight. The Foundation Award goes to someone who took a leap of faith when ClearPoint was nothing but an idea and some righteous anger. Someone who helped build our values into our systems, ensuring that as we grow, our culture remains intact. Rachel's eyes widened as she realized I was talking about her. Rachel Ford, you could have taken the safe path, the prestigious title, the bigger paycheck. Instead, you chose to help build something new. ClearPoint wouldn't exist as it does today without you. As Rachel came forward to accept her award, visibly moved, I felt a profound sense of having come full circle. 1 year ago, I had stood in a different Denver building, clutching a used notebook, feeling invisible. Now I stood before a company built in my image, using my power to make others feel seen. The true victory wasn't in leaving Shore Creative. It wasn't even in ClearPoint's success. It was in creating a place where recognition wasn't a battle to be fought, but a principle to be lived. As the ceremony concluded and the celebration continued, I slipped away briefly to my office. I placed Daniel's gift, the new monogrammed notebook, on my shelf. Then from my desk drawer, I retrieved the old one, the used one, with its bent corner and someone else's notes. I placed them side by side, beginning and catalyst, past and present, both in their own way, gifts that had shaped my path. Spring brought new energy to ClearPoint. We'd expanded our client roster to include 2 national brands, hired 5 new team members, and even opened a small satellite office in Boulder to better serve our growing list of outdoor industry clients. I was reviewing creative briefs in my office when Zoe buzzed me on the intercom. Kendra, there's a Ryan Thomas here to see you. No appointment. Another ghost from Shore Creative. Unlike Daniel's surprise visit, this one didn't fill me with apprehension. Send him in, I said, standing to greet him. Ryan entered, looking much as he had when we'd last met. For coffee over a year ago, though perhaps more polished in his tailored suit. His expression was a mix of uncertainty and determination. Kendra, he said, extending his hand. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment. Of course, I replied, shaking his hand. What brings you to ClearPoint? He glanced around my office, taking in the awards on the wall, the view of downtown, the family, photos on my desk, a new edition, showing my sister and her kids who had moved to Denver last month. I hear you're doing well, he said. The industry can't stop talking about ClearPoint. We've been fortunate, I acknowledged, but I suspect you didn't come here for small talk. What's happening at Shore? Ryan's expression tightened. Shore Creative no longer exists. As of next week, it's officially becoming Chen Partners. This was surprising news, though not entirely unexpected. Lydia Chen, the CEO brought in to replace Daniel, had been systematically dismantling his legacy for months. Complete rebrand? I asked. Ryan nodded. New name, new leadership structure, new mission statement. Nothing of Daniel Shore remains except some client relationships and the lease on the gate building. I gestured for him to sit, processing this information. That's quite a transformation. How are you feeling about it? Conflicted, he admitted, settling into a chair. On one hand, the changes Lydia implemented were necessary. The place is healthier now, more equitable. On the other hand, he trailed off. It's not what you signed up for, I finished for him. Exactly. He leaned forward. I've been creative director for over a year now. I've rebuilt the team, implemented transparent attribution and compensation systems, a lot of things you and I discussed before. Everything happened. I nodded, encouraging him to continue. But with the rebrand, Lydia's bringing in her own creative leadership team from New York. I've been offered a lateral move. Same title, but in their Chicago office. And you don't want to go to Chicago, I guessed. My life is here, Ryan confirmed. My friends, my apartment, the mountain biking trails I'm finally getting good at. He smiled briefly, then grew serious again. But it's more than that. I've been watching what you've built at ClearPoint. Everyone in the industry has. You've created something special. An agency with both creative excellence and moral integrity. I waited, sensing where this was headed. I want to be part of it, he said simply. I want to work for ClearPoint. I hadn't expected this, though perhaps I should have. Ryan, that's complicated. Because of our history? Partly, I acknowledged, but also because of what it might look like to the team. Many of them left Shore because of how they were treated there. How both of us were treated differently. Ryan nodded, understanding. I know I benefited from Daniel's favoritism. I was given opportunities that should have been shared with you, but I've spent the last year trying to dismantle that system, trying to create the kind of environment you talk about in your industry speeches. He was referring to the presentations I'd been giving at marketing conferences, sharing ClearPoint's approach to equity and recognition. I believe you, I said. But intent and perception are different things. Some of our team might see hiring you as, I'm not sure, a betrayal? A step backward? Then let me prove myself, Ryan said earnestly. I don't expect a leadership role. I'd be happy to start as a senior strategist, reporting to someone else. Just want to be part of what you're building. I studied him, remembering the young man I'd mentored years ago. He'd grown, clearly, learned from experience, just as I had. Why don't we do this? I suggested. Come in next week for a formal interview with our creative team. Let them ask their questions, share their concerns. If they're comfortable, we can discuss a role that makes sense. Relief washed over his face. That's fair, more than fair. Thank you. As Ryan left, Rachel appeared in my doorway. Was that who I think it was? News travels fast, I observed. Small office, glass walls, she replied with a shrug. Are you really considering hiring him? I sighed, leaning back in my chair. I'm considering letting the team consider it. Ryan's talented. He's learned some hard lessons. And if we truly believe in second chances and growth, shouldn't that apply to everyone? Rachel came in and closed the door. You're too forgiving sometimes, you know that? First Daniel's notebook gift, now Ryan. It's not about forgiveness, I clarified. It's about moving forward without being anchored to the past. Ryan didn't create the toxic culture at Shore. He just benefited from it. And by his account, he spent the last year trying to change it. Until Lydia Chen made it moot, Rachel said. Exactly. So now he has a choice. Go to Chicago or stay in Denver. If he stays, I'd rather have his talent with us than against us. Rachel nodded slowly. I'll set up the team interview. But Kendra, be prepared for some pushback, especially from those who were there that night at the holiday party. She was right, of course. The interview with Ryan the following week was tense. Ella, in particular, had pointed questions about his awareness of the disparities at Shore and what he'd done to address them. Marcos wanted to know if he could truly adapt to ClearPoint's collaborative model after being Daniel's golden boy. Ryan answered honestly, acknowledging his privileged position at Shore and the work he'd done to understand its impact. He shared specific examples of changes he'd implemented as creative director: attribution policies, transparent review processes, mentorship programs for overlooked talent. By the end of the 2-hour session, the energy in the room had shifted, not to full acceptance, but to cautious openness. We'll discuss and get back to you, I told Ryan as the meeting concluded. After he left, I gathered the team's feedback. The consensus was conditional approval. Ryan could join as a senior strategist, reporting to Ella with a 6-month probationary period. Not because of performance concerns, but to ensure cultural fit. When I called Ryan with the offer, he accepted immediately, expressing gratitude for the opportunity and understanding of the conditions. I know I have to earn their trust, he said. And yours, again. Not mine, I corrected him. I wouldn't have arranged the interview if I didn't think you deserved a chance. But yes, the team's trust will take time. 2 weeks later, Ryan started at ClearPoint. I watched from my office as Ella showed him around, introduced him to new team members, set expectations. There was an irony. There. The mentor now being mentored. But there was also rightness to it. A realignment of relationships based on merit rather than politics. That evening, as I was preparing to leave, Ryan stopped by my office. First day in the books, he said. It's different here. Good, different. How so? I asked, curious about his perception. People look each other in the eye, he said after a moment's thought. They give credit easily. They challenge ideas without attacking people. It's like, he searched for the words. It's like everyone can breathe. I smiled, recognizing his description. That's what happens when people know their value is recognized. They don't have to fight for it. Ryan nodded. I get it now. What you were trying to build at Shore. What you've actually built here. As he left, I thought about the journey that had led us both to this point. The used notebook that had broken my tolerance for invisibility. The data that had exposed inequity. The courage to walk away. The even greater courage to build something new. ClearPoint wasn't perfect. No organization is. We face the same challenges as any growing business, but we face them with a foundation of respect, recognition, and integrity that made all the difference. In the end, that was the gift I had given myself, and now to others. Not revenge or vindication, but the chance to work in a place where everyone could breathe. 2 years to the day after I left Shore Creative, now Chen Partners, I found myself in an unexpected position, standing on a stage at the Colorado Marketing Association's annual awards gala, accepting Agency of the Year for ClearPoint Collective. This award belongs to everyone at ClearPoint, I said into the microphone, the spotlight warm on my face. To the people who took a leap of faith on a new vision for what an agency could be. To those who believe that excellence and integrity aren't mutually exclusive. And to our clients who trust us with their brands and their missions. The applause was thunderous. Our entire team occupied 3 tables near the front, dressed in their finest, beaming with pride. Rachel, elegant in burgundy, was recording the moment on her phone. Ella and Marcos were holding hands, their office romance now official and flourishing. Ryan sat beside Wei, both applauding enthusiastically. Henry raised his glass in a silent toast. As I returned to my seat, trophy in hand, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure across the room. Lydia Chen, the woman who had replaced Daniel at what was once Shore Creative. Our eyes met briefly, and she gave me a small, respectful nod. I returned it. We were competitors now, but there was room in the industry for different approaches to excellence. Quite a moment, Henry murmured as I sat beside him. From used notebook to Agency of the Year in 2 years. How does it feel? Surreal, I admitted, but right, somehow. The ceremony continued, with awards for various campaigns and initiatives. ClearPoint won 3 more. Best Digital Campaign, Best Social Impact, and the Innovation Award for a groundbreaking approach to augmented reality marketing that Wei had developed. As the formal ceremony concluded and the networking portion of the evening began, I found myself surrounded by well-wishers, clients, industry peers, even competitors offering congratulations. The energy was intoxicating, validation of everything we'd built. Then a hush fell over the group around me, and I turned to see what had caused it. Daniel Shore stood there, looking uncomfortable in the sudden silence. He'd been keeping a low profile since his departure from the agency that once bore his name, consulting quietly, avoiding industry events. "Congratulations, Kendra," he said, his voice sincere. "You deserve it." The crowd seemed to hold its breath, waiting for my response. 2 years ago, this man had given me a used notebook while gifting millions in stock to someone else. Now he was congratulating me on surpassing his legacy. "Thank you, Daniel," I said simply. "How have you been?" Relief crossed his face at my civil response. "Good, actually. Busy with some international consulting. Different pace. Healthier." Small talk continued for a few minutes. Surprisingly comfortable. The bystanders gradually relaxed, conversations resuming around us. Whatever drama they might have hoped for wasn't going to materialize. As Daniel prepared to move on, he hesitated, then said quietly, "You know, I keep thinking about what you said that day in your office. About recognition being shared, not hoarded. About true leadership, lifting others up." He looked around at the ClearPoint team, celebrating nearby. "You were right. I see that now." It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was an acknowledgement, perhaps the most honest one I would ever get from him. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It means a lot." After he walked away, Rachel appeared at my side. "Well, that was civilized," I laughed. "What were you expecting? A scene from a reality show?" "Kind of," she admitted. "The agency world loves its drama." "I think we've had enough drama," I said. "Besides, holding grudges takes too much energy. I'd rather focus on building than burning." The evening wound down, the team gradually dispersing to after-parties or homes. I found myself sharing a quiet moment with Ryan and Ella at the bar, both slightly tipsy from celebration. "Remember when you first interviewed at ClearPoint?" Ella asked Ryan, her tone teasing. "I grilled you like you were on trial." Ryan grinned. "I deserved it. I was terrified you'd all reject me." "I almost did," she admitted. "But then you said something that changed my mind. You said you wanted to be part of building something meaningful, not just advancing your career." "And I meant it," Ryan said, his expression growing serious. "Working at ClearPoint, it's different. Better. The work is better because the environment is better." I sipped my champagne, watching them. Ryan had integrated into the team beautifully over the past year, earning respect through humility and hard work. Ella had grown into her leadership role, mentoring junior staff with the same care I'd once shown her. Their relationship, First adversarial, then professional, now friendly, embodied the evolution of ClearPoint itself. To building something meaningful, I said, raising my glass. They clinked their glasses against mine, and for a moment, the three of us were connected by something deeper than work, a shared vision of what could be when people were valued for their contributions, not their politics. Later that night, as my Uber pulled up to my condo building, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Congratulations. Again. You've built something remarkable. DS. I smiled slightly, saved the number, but didn't respond. Some chapters didn't need more words. Inside my condo, I placed the Agency of the Year trophy on my mantle, next to a framed photo of the original ClearPoint team, the 5 of us who had started this journey together, standing in our first tiny office, hope and determination in our eyes. Beside, it sat 2 notebooks, one used with a bent corner and someone else's notes on the first few pages. One new, leather-bound with my initials embossed in gold. Beginning and catalyst, insult and impetus, both instrumental in their own way. I touched the used one gently. Thank you, I whispered to it. Not to Daniel, not to Shore Creative, but to the moment of clarity that notebook had provided. The moment when I decided my worth was not determined by others' recognition, but by my own actions. That night, I slept more peacefully than I had in years, with the satisfaction of someone who has not just survived injustice, but transformed it into something beautiful. The next morning, I woke to an email that would change everything once again. The email came from Veronica Sandoval, CEO of Altura Mountain Resorts and one of ClearPoint's first clients. Kendra, congratulations on Agency of the Year. Well deserved. I have a proposition to discuss. Not just another campaign, but something bigger. My board has approved an initiative to establish an in-house creative studio, combining marketing with sustainability innovation. We need a visionary leader who understands both brand building and ethical business practices. In short, I'm offering you the position of Chief Creative Officer at Altura. Full C-suite role, equity stake, budget to build your own team. This would be a partnership, not just employment. I know you've built something special at ClearPoint, and this isn't a decision to make lightly, but I also know your passion for sustainability and social impact aligns perfectly with Altura's mission. Let's meet next week to discuss. No pressure, just exploration. Veronica. I read the email 3 times, my coffee growing cold beside me. Chief Creative Officer, C-suite, equity stake, everything I once thought I wanted, everything I might have been offered to stay at Shore Creative that day in the conference room. But this was different. This was Veronica, a leader I respected, a company whose values aligned with mine. And it wasn't a desperate attempt to keep me from leaving. It was a thoughtful invitation to join something new. Still, ClearPoint was my creation, my redemption, my proof that business could be done differently. How could I leave? I forwarded the email to Rachel with a simple message. Your thoughts? Her response came within minutes. Let's talk. Coffee and 30? We met at our usual spot, the small cafe halfway between our homes. Rachel was already there, 2 cups waiting on the table. So, she said as I sat down, Veronica wants to poach you. It's not poaching if I'm the owner, I pointed out. Semantics, Rachel replied with a wave of her hand. The question is, are you considering it? I sipped my coffee, gathering my thoughts. I don't know. ClearPoint is thriving. We just won Agency of the Year. Why would I leave now? Maybe because you've proven what you set out to prove, Rachel suggested. You created an agency that values integrity and recognition. You changed how our corner of the industry operates. Maybe your work there is done. I considered her words. And what about everyone who followed me? Who believed in the vision? That's the real question, isn't it? Rachel leaned forward. But let me ask you something. When you started ClearPoint, was it about creating a permanent empire or proving a point? The question struck me deeply. Why had I started ClearPoint? Yes, it was to create the kind of agency I wanted to work for. But it was also to prove that excellence could thrive without politics. That recognition could be fair and transparent. That integrity mattered more than charm. Both, I suppose, I admitted. But the people are professionals who chose to join you, Rachel reminded me. They didn't sign lifetime contracts. They believed in a vision, and that vision is now reality. ClearPoint exists. It works. It's changing the industry. Whether you're at the helm or not, that achievement stands. I stared into my coffee. You think I should take Veronica's offer. I think you should consider it, Rachel corrected, and consider another possibility too. Which is? Succession planning. Her eyes were steady on mine. If you did leave, who would lead Clearpoint? The question hung between us, but we both knew the answer. Over the past year, Rachel had increasingly taken on operational leadership, freeing me to focus on creative direction and client relationships. She understood the business inside and out. She embodied our values. She had the respect of the team. You, I said finally. She nodded. It's something to consider. I've learned a lot from you, Kendra. About leadership, about courage, about building something with integrity at its core. If you decided to take on a new challenge, I would be honored to continue what you started. The conversation shifted to practicalities. How such a transition might work, what it would mean for the team, for clients, for the Clearpoint brand. By the time we finished our coffee, a possible path forward had emerged. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of meetings. First with Veronica, exploring the details of her offer, which was even more compelling in person. Then with my attorney and financial advisor, discussing the implications of transitioning leadership at Clearpoint while retaining ownership stake. Finally, the hardest meeting of all, with the Clearpoint leadership team. We gathered in the conference room, Rachel, Ella, Marcos, Wei, Ryan, Henry, and the other senior staff who had joined along. The way. I laid out both Veronica's offer and my proposed solution. Rachel would become CEO, with me remaining as board chair and majority owner, but stepping back from day-to-day operations. This isn't about leaving Clearpoint behind, I explained. It's about expanding our impact. The work we've done here has changed our corner of the industry. The work I could do at Altura would apply those same principles to sustainability and social impact on a larger scale. The reactions were mixed: concern, understanding, support, questions. But as the discussion progressed, a consensus emerged. The team believed in the foundation we'd built. They trusted Rachel to lead. They saw the potential for Clearpoint to evolve while staying true to its core values. We'll miss seeing you every day, Ella said, voicing what many were feeling. But we understand why this opportunity matters to you. And it's not like you're disappearing, Marcos added. You'll still be part of Clearpoint. Ryan, who had been quiet for most of the meeting, finally spoke. When I joined Clearpoint, I was looking for meaning in my work. You showed me what that could look like. If this move brings you that same sense of purpose, how could we not support it? 3 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, I walked into Altura Mountain Resort's headquarters for my first day as Chief Creative Officer. My office overlooked the mountains, a reminder of the broader impact I hope to create. On my desk sat a brand new notebook, a gift from the Clearpoint team, with a note signed by everyone. For the next chapter, write it boldly, with the same courage and integrity that showed us all what's possible. Clearpoint continues because of the foundation you built. Now go build something new. Beside it was a small wrapped package. Inside was the used notebook, the one that had started everything. Attached was a note in Rachel's handwriting. Never forget where the journey began, but remember, it's the path forward. That matters most. Thank you for showing me the way. I ran my fingers over both notebooks, feeling the full circle of the journey. From humiliation to vindication, from invisibility to influence, from a used notebook to a legacy that would outlast my tenure. Later that week, I met Rachel for our now traditional coffee. She was energized, already implementing new ideas at Clearpoint while maintaining the culture we'd built together. How does it feel? I asked. Being in charge? Terrifying, she admitted with a laugh. Exhilarating, meaningful. She studied me. And for you? Any regrets? I thought about the path that had led me here, the slights endured, the risks taken, the people who had joined me along the way. I thought about that holiday party 2.5 years ago when Daniel Shore had crowned Ryan as his successor while handing me a used notebook. Not one, I said with absolute certainty. Every step led exactly where I needed to go. As we parted ways outside the cafe, Rachel heading back to Clearpoint and I to Altura, I felt a profound sense of peace. The used notebook that had once symbolized my diminishment had become the catalyst for something far greater than revenge or vindication. It had become the first page of a story about dignity reclaimed, about integrity rewarded, about building something that would outlast any single slight or success. And that was worth more than all the stock certificates in the world.